Nomad Itchy is with us here, the home of the digital nomads. And it's been another incredible week, and we're so happy that you're tuning in with us tonight. I hope you saw our broadcast yesterday. And the few big things I have to talk about at the very beginning. We're going to have a big event next week, November 25th, Exventure Night from Israel with our partners from Terra Ventures. We're going to be introducing the 5 leading tech startups out of Israel. And then December 3rd, we're going to have exventure from Los Angeles and Bali with the best tech companies from the US and Canada. It's going to be awesome. So, but let's get to it for today. Also, please subscribe to your channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, I know most of you are watching this on LinkedIn, but if you happen to watch on YouTube, please subscribe to us so you get all the great content that's coming from us. And let's take it from here. I got Tarush with us because we have a major problem we need to solve, and so we got a specialist in. Yesterday evening, if you've been following, we had Craig Douglas with us from Set Ventures, the largest venture fund in the clean tech field from the Netherlands. And what was he asking for? Data, data, data. If you want to find an investor into your company, show them why they should invest, where your traction is going. And this is why we brought a data specialist with us. Tarush, thank you so much for coming on the program. How are you?
Hey, Julien, I'm great. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Amazing. You did a speech last week, which most of it I missed, I admit. We got a tight schedule since we opened our own bar last week, but we're going to talk about this later. You only do data. How did you get into this? Well, how did data become your thing?
So, like many others, I went to school for computer science, and 2011, no one's getting jobs, and I was fortunate enough to land a job in Silicon Valley at Salesforce.com. And I started off as a software engineer. That's what I trained for, went to school for that. And very quickly, I realized that I'm going to fail at software engineering. Like, first day of work, I get there, and I'm like, this is not going to work out. And the reason for it is most software engineers spend their whole careers focusing on optimizing a small part of the puzzle. And obviously that's super important, right? If Google gets 0.0001 second faster, it's a big deal. Yeah. But that's not something I was interested in. I'm much more of a big picture person. So, sort of first day at work, I realized I'm going to fail at this. And just, a classic case of...
So how long did you last at that job? I mean, knowing that this is not for you.
Yeah,
did you just walk straight back out, or what happened?
The funny thing is, 2 or 3 months in, had a conversation with someone who was just starting to talk about data. Mm-hmm. At that time, Silicon Valley data wasn't really a thing, right? And this is just 2011, so less than 10 years ago.
You're old. You're like me old. It's weird. You look a lot younger, though.
Thanks.
So 2011, I mean, data and data science was really not where it is right now, right?
That was the beginning of it. So, got super lucky, sort of met this product manager, and started building one of the first versions of log shipping, which is, allowed Salesforce to analyze data across multiple customers and share insights from that. That's how I really got into it. And just sort of stayed true to my lane, haven't left ever since. So been in the field for the last 10 years.
And so what you do now, and I think this is a very interesting business model, if you're out there listening, how you can do your startup. Obviously, you're also here in Bali. Just a little. I love talking about Bali, right? This doesn't mean you all have to come to Bali.
Please don't.
Please don't. Exactly. It's rather busy here already, and we're having a great time. So if we don't like you, just please stay out far away. But we both lived in Silicon Valley, California, the whole thing. What is the biggest difference between California and Silicon Valley and Bali?
Between California and Bali? It's strangely familiar and also unfamiliar. Mm-hmm. I think why San Francisco or California was more different from New York was this idea of the stick and the carrot. Sort of New York teaches you that if you don't work hard, you will be fired, and San Francisco is more like if you work hard, you might find success, which is a completely different way of thinking about it. I think Bali just takes that to the next level. So,
I thought actually, for my background, for me, Bali was what I was hoping California would be, and it wasn't.
I love that. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's what, when I went there, that's what I was hoping it was.
I thought we were going to be surfing, and we're going to be singing hippie songs and, smoke some weed and be surrounded by super genius creative people. And then it was the most commercial, overrated, boring place I've lived in my life. And I've lived in a lot of places.
It is the most boring place. There's something about it which is just like, there's nothing fun about it. Like, it's just walking on the streets is a disaster with like homeless people and piss everywhere.
I'm so with you on that. It's so overrated.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, here we actually doing this. I mean, we're surrounded by really smart people. I mean, we're sharing the same office space. Again, if you say, you're working from home, doesn't necessarily mean you're working from home next to your stove. You might be working from a place where you sit next to people that have a lot of interesting things to talk about and who are not from your industry, and actually, bring ideas to your startup that you haven't thought about it before. And that's how we work here, right? It's not we work alone, but we work around really interesting people.
I just thought WFH means work from hammock in Bali.
Okay.
It's a work from home.
It's work from hammock. It works really, really well. So going back to the data kind of thing, I said we get this request every single time we come to an investor, and we kind of get this pushback from companies. They want to know what's going on, and they want to have data points, and they want to have benchmarks. And as an entrepreneur, obviously, you follow your big vision. So that's kind of a nuisance. So what is your 2 minutes? What would you suggest for any company from the get-go, how to get their data in line and make it traceable to an outside investor?
That's a great question. Everyone talks about being data-driven, right? Like every next company you go to, they speak about using numbers. But in reality, 90% of them have no idea what that really means, right? So what companies really jump to is this idea of getting insights from data. Hey, let's go hire a data scientist, or let's go hire data analysts and start to get insights. In reality, what they're doing is just coming up with hypotheses themselves and then asking these analysts to validate their hypothesis, because they're just jumping to insights. And I guess the number one mistake which companies make, and if you get anything out of this, it's, the idea of don't jump to insights prematurely. Just like everything else, you have to set up a foundation. Like, we know that if you want to build a skyscraper, the more time you spend without adding layers, just building the foundation, you might even have to go down. But the more you do that, the faster you can go up. So same thing with data. What you really need to focus on is 3 layers, and I can get into that later. But how do you come up with a data model which can answer 80% of the questions in a self-service way? And if you get to this goal where you can answer most questions without depending on your analyst or without depending on your data science, what starts happening is people want to ask more questions, and they can test their hypothesis without depending on someone else. And that really is what I call being data-driven. When you can answer stuff for yourself without depending on anyone else. That's the real culture change.
So the concept is less like I say, listen, how many views we get on this thing. I mean, there's obviously really just the surface is to gather the data without targeting the outcome, right? Yeah. And just gathering the data and make it flexible and legible in a way and understandable, that if now you come with a question, your data provides the answer and not vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of views, right? Views are obviously very important. And, traditionally you'll go to your analyst and ask for a report with these 5 or 10 metrics, and views might be one of them. Yeah. However, when you start looking at it, you now have another question. How many views came yesterday when we ran this ad campaign? How did this change? And if every time you have a small meta question, and you keep going back to this analyst, you're sort of, it takes too long, you're never going to get anywhere. However, if you didn't have a report, but you had a self-service tool, which you could ask majority of these questions, play around with the drag drop, not really be technical, but be able to get insights from this without depending on anyone else, that's when you'll really start to really understand what's actually happening. And it's going to change from being just numbers to actually being a story which you can tell, and you can start to validate by looking at those numbers. And that's really where the sort of value comes from.
Yeah. What I find interesting about your business model is you're not building a SaaS company, right? You're not a consultant in that kind of way. Your job or your company teaches other companies how to put the data processes in place that serves their company, and then manage it themselves.
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
So I run a company called 5X Data, and really this idea of being that data is a core competitive advantage, right? Unlike other parts of your business which can be outsourced, data is something you want to do in-house because it's your bread and butter. Yeah. So, what we teach you how to do is how do you build data in-house? We're different from other consulting companies which are selling you solutions. Instead, we are enabling your teams. So it's more like teaching you how to fish instead of selling you fish. That sort of analogy.
I love just to buy the fish in the restaurant, right? Nicely prepared.
Yeah.
I don't want to learn. I think we talk about this. I think fishing is one of the most boring things in the world.
Totally agree. I need a new analogy.
I like it nice prepared, with the sauce and everything on top of it, ready to be served.
Yeah.
Take even the bones out if you can do. But it's definitely, I know also a lot of companies talking about this seriously, that if you're a large company out there or you're going for an IPO, for example, this data is vital.
Exactly.
Right? Especially if you have, doing a public offering. I know in our past, if we would work for hotels on energy management, we can tell how much the occupancy of that Marriott hotel or that Hilton hotel, because we know how much energy they consume, how much water they consume, when they consume it, so this is vital information that people should keep in-house, I think, if you want to grow as a company.
Yeah, exactly. Like the idea of outsourcing it goes back to my first analogy, right? If every time you need to change something, and now not only do you have to instead of even going to your analyst, you have to go to an outside agency who's going to update some numbers for you. It's never going to work. So, you need I think people are the number one asset of a company, right? And as you bring on more people, if you can't give them very clear objectives and measure how they're doing, then you sort of really can't grow. Yeah. And if you want to be able to give your people clear objectives and measure how they're doing, you need to have the right systems in place to measure that. And that's really what we help with.
And maybe even, probably even multiple systems. You're not running like one software system. You go deeper and say, listen, what processes can help this company to track their data? Do I understand correctly?
Yeah, what gets really interesting is, if you look at where we are in the Web 2.0 world today, we have thousands of different services. So everything has started to become decentralized, right? You have a different service for email and a different service for ads and 1,000 other sort of services. Data is one of those things which you want to start to re-centralize. Okay. So the first thing which we teach you is how do you extract this data from this 100 different data sources. They exist. This could be your transactional databases, your front-end tracking tools, your ads, your referral program, affiliate marketing, XYZ. And how do you ingest it into a central warehouse such that you can now join this across these multiple data sources and start to answer questions across data sources.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so it's a 3-step process. The first step is how do you automate ingestion and re-centralize everything into what we call a data warehouse.
Because in reality, it often already stops with the point that like nobody remembers all the passwords.
Yeah.
Right? There's something as simple as that. But like if we have a new person coming in and they ask me, I need to have a list of all your passwords. We try to change them frequently. Let's say we use 50 different services. So we change 50 different passwords every just in itself, that's where it's like, I got this account, but I don't have the right password.
If it's not exventure 123, then try 1234, right?
It's an absolute true story. I kid you not. We did our first raise in 2006 in Silicon Valley. We raised $57 million from Kleiner Perkins and some of the biggest guys in the game. And I was actually, part of my job was take over the company. And it was like they were storing the hard disk with all the information in the bank's vault, right? And the company was called Agnion. So we walked in, we did the whole thing. Everything was super secure, VC backed, and the password was Agnion12345. I'm like, how is that even possible? But it's a true story. Yeah. Back then, it's like, that's because, nobody remembers the freaking password. People are so stupid, and that's what jeopardizes data.
Even the password management tools are just horrible, right?
It's terrible. Yeah. And mine, the biggest risk, I don't save anything because, I go a lot to China, for example, so I always assume everything will be stolen anyway. And also, my biggest risk is I walk around with my laptop all the time. Yeah. I just leave it somewhere. Yeah. Right? I make it very easy for people. I leave my, with some, probably using some kind of pet's name as my password, and there's my laptop right there. Access to everything.
All you need is clues now, just everywhere around Canggu, just small clues. Okay. Make it into a treasure map. Next up.
But that it would have to find if my data is actually worth something. But I learned almost all data is worth something. So your business model is, and I think it's very interesting, you're selling a class, like a teaching class that is customized to your business though, right? You're a remote online class, personal consulting /
Yeah. So, we work in two ways, right? So the first thing is we offer programs to teach companies the fundamentals, right? So, answer 80% of questions without depending on the data team, or here's how to hire your first few engineers. This is what to look for in engineer number 1 versus engineer number 5. So, we've automated a lot of the basic stuff, right? So, we have these online programs where we bring in speakers, where we bring in the best speakers. We have step-by-step instructional videos. We have partnerships with all the top vendors you want to be using. And this is really to help you get started from 0 to 1. Right? If you're just getting started with data, or you have a few people, but you really want to optimize them, hey, this is everything I've learned in the last 10 years. This is the playbook. Yeah. It should be a no-brainer if you're thinking about data to go take one of these programs. Yeah. That's the first thing which we do. And the second thing is, once you have some level of competency over there, that's when we work with you more on a one-on-one, where we come up with a sort of bespoke plan and help you with what you need. So you might be a big data company, or sort of real-time is valuable for you, or you need to figure out storage in a way, or you really need to figure out your machine learning layer, or gain insights, or build new data-driven products, sort of whatever it is. After a certain point, once you have those capabilities, that's when we come in, and I work one-on-one with these companies, helping them take things to the next level. So we have some plans to get you from 0 to 1, and that's really these online programs. And then once you're trying to get from 1 to 100, when things really get interesting, that's when we'll work
the
more.
Later phase. What I did find interesting about your pricing model is that a lot of people that will look at a service that you're offering, and we're going to go into more detail in a second. You're asking for a sizable amount of money. Any company looking for it. But me having hired companies like Schneider Electric to do custom engineering in the past, I know this would be like 1 week of work.
Yeah.
How do you price your services, and how do people react to it?
Sure. So, our initial programs are meant to be are actually very reasonably priced. Considering, let's say, the cost of an engineer at the lower end is, let's say, $100,000. Our online program started about $15,000. So they're really priced at a point where it should be a no-brainer for any company who's serious about using data to take things at the next level. So if the way I look at it is, these programs are gonna provide you a massive ROI. If you already have an engineering team, they're probably gonna at least double the efficiency of it. And if you don't have it, it's giving you what your first engineers would do in a much easier, quicker way. Yeah. So for us, these programs are really priced to be sort of it should be a no-brainer for most companies. And then when you work with us more one-on-one, at that point we look more like a traditional consulting company in terms of just our pricing. So we get more expensive when we get to our one-on-one point, but our initial program should be like they're super cheap compared to the value they bring.
And do your customers see a difference? I mean, your entire team is based remotely, right? I mean, everybody works remotely on your team, right? Or do you have still people on the ground in Silicon Valley that knock on people's physical doors?
No, we don't do anything physical. Like, one of the core values is if we can't build this company while being on a hammock in Bali, I'm not interested in building it. Yeah. So, we have people in Shanghai, New York, Australia, Bali, Philippines, and probably soon to be San Francisco and London. Okay. So, we're really biting into this, into the idea of remote work and being able to work from anywhere in the world. Yeah.
I think it's a big thing. I mean, it's we're really coming into a time where you said everything is in the cloud these days anyway, right? So if your services are on the cloud, nobody really cares where you are. And that's my experience of working. I was a speaker for Schneider Electric, one of the biggest automation software companies in the world, for the last years. And how often do you really meet your engineer in person? I mean, it didn't happen before. You just didn't say it.
Yeah.
Because because it was far too expensive for him to drive to our office. Would cost us $2,000, just to have him drive up. So of course you're going to do it via video chat.
Yeah.
But now it has kind of jump started. How do you think online business like your changed during COVID? Last question before Oliver's going to cut us off there in the back. I know.
I think COVID is obviously taken a massive toll on certain industries, but very, very bullish. I think what WeWork really stood for, and I spent a lot of time over there, what WeWork stood for was this idea that you can have an office anywhere in the world instead of sort of subscribing to one single location and paying rent there. Imagine walking into any new city and being able to walk into any office and getting a conference room. So if anything, it's probably accelerated the timeline towards the world moving into this WeWork-esque model. So super bullish on working remotely and finding space when you need it. Space as a service is finally here. And I think we have COVID to thank for that.
I think it's accelerating this whole process. What is the best way to reach you? If I want to learn more about my own company's data, if I'm a startup, I'm raising money right now, and this is really one suggestion, take some money out of your seed round to put some data points and processes in place, because the moment you go for a Series A or Series B, you bring institutional investors on board, you will need that data. People want to have transparency about what's going on in your company, how efficient you are, and they don't want to be sitting in like an auditor, right? Investors are not auditors. They're going to sit there, go through your paperwork. So make it transparent from day one. So what's the best way to reach you, and how can I get started with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to reach us now is by email or our website. We're 5xdata.co.co. We're still not .com, so 5xdata.co. And my email is Tarush, Tarush, at 5xdata.co. We're super. We just launched our programs a few months ago. And we're seeing massive results. So if anyone's interested in doing them, we'll do a promotion just for exventures clients for the next 1 week. So if you sign up before that, we'll do the program for 10,000 instead of 15, which is our retail.
Amazing. We're going to stick this online. And again, if you're out there to raise 25 million or 50 million in the next round, or even just 5 million, I want to say my regrets, right? I ran a startup. I still run a startup for the last decade. We have never really been able to get our data in place. And the reasons for that were that we grew massively first, about 200 people, and then we try to generate the data out of it. And at that point, it's 200 times more complicated than if you would have put in the measures and the systems in place beforehand.
Yeah, it just goes back to the first thing I said is founders often delay when they need data right until they need insights. And if you don't get time to set up the foundations, then you're just hacking it together. It's like trying to build a building without a foundation. You're just throwing concrete over there and hoping it's going to stick.
Yeah. And investors really don't like that, because that means ultimately you might be running a multi-$100 million company based on an Excel spreadsheet. And if the person who's running your spreadsheet quits, or is just sick for a day, or just makes a mistake, there goes your entire numbers, and you have to go back the following week and say, listen, oops, we're off by 6-7 million. It looks like shit. So prepare early. It's one of my few advice I really can give. We messed this thing up. I think, with Tarush's help, we can do this a lot better. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Julien.
And we'll see you tomorrow for Census.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm looking
The
forward
other way to
it.
get in contact with him, if you do come to Bali, which I suggest you don't because it's terrible here.
Don't come. It's horrible.
Don't come, but you can also reach him here at Tropical Nomad, one of my desk neighbors. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.
Oliver, all right. Amazing start to the program. This man makes data science look sexy. What else on our agenda?
We have George joining us from Montenegro for a drone company called Vera Drones. They're actually based out of home country, Germany.
Okay. I also know Montenegro, right? Never been there, but I was stationed very close in Serbia. But that's the part of the Balkans without a beach. So next time before I sign a contract like this, I'll have to check the map. Correct. Very simple sources for that to find out where the beach is and where it isn't. Montenegro, beautiful beach. Serbia, not so much.
Very true.
Easy things to find out. You don't need a big data-driven service to figure that one out, that you just signed a 2-year contract on a place without beach access. Cool. Let's do it. There's George. He's coming on board.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, George. Nice to meet you. Can you say something? We can check your audio.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, we can hear you very well. Are you in Germany or Montenegro?
No, in Montenegro.
Montenegro. I just said I used to work in Serbia, so I wasn't that far away. But I was very disappointed there was no water.
But I am with water, just 50 meters.
I was literally, I used to be stationed in Kraljevo and Kragujevac. Not that far from you guys away.
But I never was in Serbia, so I cannot say nothing. Sorry for that.
My job for the German government was to reduce the amount of landfills for illegal slaughterhouse waste in Serbia. It was one of the sexier projects in my life. And I can say with all honesty that we have made absolutely zero contribution, and I probably just wasted 2 years of my life. But that's a totally different story. George, tell us about, for the people out there, we have a lot of US viewers obviously watching this thing in rerun over the course of the night. Tell us a little something about Montenegro, because it's a highly underrated small country in Europe.
It is a very small country with a small population. What is good that usually it's nice weather, and usually it's nice people.
And it has really very low tax rates. Yeah.
What?
Very low tax rates still as well, right?
Yeah. So it's nice air, absolutely no nervous, no stress. Everything is really fine.
This is
I'm
great to know.
surprised that during the Corona I'm here. It's nice place to stay this time.
And it also used to have one of the best residency programs in Europe. Now that we have a Biden presidency coming up, might not be as pressing anymore, but for people in clean technology, we talked a lot about, where can you move to Europe, make it as easy as possible. But tell us something about your drone company.
Maybe I can start with my technical background and then move to the company.
Of course, yes.
Okay, so my technical background came from technical university. Specialization was for moon rockets and other wheelbase special systems, not just only cars, but different. In wheelbase or not. Then I moved to automotive industry with the parallelly using the sport cars and creating few sport cars for classic rally, and I was a pilot as well, and had a lot of experiences with the spare parts for this type of job or like that. Then moved to serial production for automotive parts and then to aviation.
Yeah.
In 2020s, I started to be a pilot, like a helicopter pilot and a normal plane pilot, like a private license. And then after 10 years, I started to think about how to create something interesting for the people, and came to decision to create my first helicopter. And from 2008, I started to have these experiences, and till the moment I built few flying prototypes with the new technologies, and it was done especially by the rules, aviation rules, which existed already. And then I moved to ideas to create something comparable in aviation and to increase the possibilities for aircrafts and for helicopters, which is not existing in the market because of the technical things. Okay. So once we have some new solutions, new possibilities with autopilots, with new programming systems, with the collision detectors and everything, so start to be more interesting to create something new.
So when you talk about, what do you fly now? Helicopters, drones? I mean, I love anything that gets me from A to B without having to be stuck in traffic, right? That's also a Silicon Valley experience. Is all of our dreams to just be picked up and be dropped off somewhere else. What are you working on now?
The existing dream, which is not realized yet, is the flying car, of course. But
We're
real
getting
flying
pretty
car.
close.
Not
I mean,
just,
we've had companies like Lilium on the program, right? Volocopter,
uh,
real. There's a lot of movement in that space.
but it is not flying cars. It is the aircrafts, which has the name like flying cars. But we have a normal understanding that the cars are moving on the normal roads. So
Yeah.
if you are thinking about the flying car,
I
you
never
have
liked the
to.
normal roads. So if I can bypass the normal roads
No, no.
altogether, just
It is.
land me
It
on my
is.
rooftop where I want to go, right? Or for
It
us,
is
we
very.
live in Bali, right? So we just want to go to all the small islands and like drop off right on the beach. That'd be so amazing.
The question is the noise and the neighborhoods, because once I had a helicopter which based in my home, the neighborhoods usually talking to me, Igor, please, or George, do not come at night, do not come early morning, we want to sleep.
Yeah.
It means you have to land somewhere close to your house and then move on this vehicle to your home quietly. This is the main question, that you cannot go, even you can on the top of the building, it's making noise. So
Yeah.
let's come close to your area and then move like a bicycle
Yeah.
or small car like that. This is an idea, but it's not uh, the program of our company right now. We're
Yeah.
working in different.
So
Officially, we're working in firefighting systems with the payload around 1 ton. So we can take water, we can take people, we can dock with the high-rise buildings, take people from the windows, put people into the windows, we can land on the roofs, under the fire. So everything, what we can do, it's not possible to do with the helicopters.
a little about the technical part. So you said everything, obviously, in the emergency setting involving fires. How are you dealing with the battery issues? I mean, we have a lot of components in electric moving vehicles of any kind of that don't really like open fires that much.
Okay.
What's
So,
your USP in that?
yeah. So as I understood, you don't know that we are not electrical.
Oh, you're not electrical, no? I get very
We're
little
not.
information. Like Oliver kind of gives me like a quick brief, and then I have to make it up as we go along. So you're non-electrical. Okay, it's something new.
Yeah. Uh, why we are not electrical at this moment? Because of certification, first of all, and the price for the flying hour at the end. Because when you will compare with between normal aircrafts and electrical or hybrid systems, you will see that in that moment the efficiency, battery efficiency, is much more less than you can use normal natural gas like a fuel or normal diesel or normal fuel. Of course, in few years, the battery can be more powerful, but we have to have minimum 2 times more powerful than existing batteries.
Yeah.
And then, of course, will be much more easier to fly everywhere. But today's possibility for certification to normal using the aircrafts, even drones, it's little bit
And it's not.
some
I mean,
fraud,
I think also it's
technical
yeah.
fraud for the people. I like this idea to use hybrid schemes, to use the engines, electrical engines, but small and light electrical engines has to have minimum 1,000 volts on the
Yeah.
board, and it's dangerous. And again, you have to answer and have a question how you will get this 1,000 volts on the board.
Yeah,
So you have
and also
have
your
special-
also your systems probably will not be up in the air 24/7. So I mean the carbon emissions from non-electric drones on a global level is probably negligible for the moment.
I agree with you totally, but once you are using the hydrogen or once you are using the natural gas, this will be not a problem.
Yeah.
What is the question for hydrogen? That the normal piston engines which will work in hydrogen, we did this technology together with some suppliers. What we saw that the power from this type of the engines less twice than with normal fuel like that. So we can, of course, use the hydrogen, or we can use the hydrogen system on the board. but let's it start to be less expensive and a little bit lighter. So we are ready to use it.
Yeah.
But the market is not ready because nobody wants to pay for some extra flying hour cost instead of the existing helicopters, for example.
Yeah.
So we are creating the system which will work outside of the cities, deliver something in the hills, in the desert, to the water, but now, not tomorrow, not after 5 years. So
Yeah.
we are ready to make a flights and to make cheapest flying hour today and certify it today. This
Okay.
is the main target for our team, for our company.
And from my side, I mean, you know, we mainly focus on fundraising and investors. Where does your company stand, and are you looking for investors right now? What's your next step?
By my experiences in whole life, I'm not a young man, so you have to work with the future, even to yesterday or tomorrow, today, because once you will have a target, reach the target, you will have new one, and in this stage you have to be ready with the money, new investments. So if you want to build something in 2 or 3 years, you have to start it now. And in this case, because we have not just one type of the systems, we are open to have some investors. Why
Yeah.
not? And we are searching the teams for that moment in Australia, in USA, in Africa. So we are not staying and waiting.
Yeah.
We are opening joint ventures. We're working.
Your company is based in Germany or Montenegro or?
No, company based in Germany
Okay.
because of again the government situation. So the government wants to give us some money for these projects, and we decided to stay in Germany and wait. But the corona make us a little bit crazy because everything postponed, and from this summer till the January we just taking the papers and putting on the table in different place.
Yeah.
I'm
There's
talking
not
about
much.
the government situation.
You know,
but
I still run my engineering company in Germany, and we feel very similar. We're trying to get something done, but it's a very difficult situation right now for everybody. If people want to find out more about your company and how to get involved, what is the best way to reach you? And obviously, we're going to put it right underneath this interview after we're done. Your website or email, which is the best way to reach you?
Of course, email or website. Mail is easiest and always in the connection. You can see it. And my partner and CEO Valery as well. So 5 minutes and I will answer.
We're going to share that information. And I'm looking forward to see more the technical data that you put out there. If there's anything we can do from raising the fund side, I mean, that's what we're strong at. We have a very strong investor network. And especially in the US, I do see some markets there because obviously insurance payments, everything, especially in emergency situations, are driving up the cost. So thank you very, very much. And we're going to put all the information down here on our LinkedIn channel. That's our best channel. So much. Thank you very much for your time and all the best to Montenegro. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay well.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
I also have to say from my personal experience, one of the surprises I have had, I ran a project for the German government, as I said, in Serbia before, which is very close to Montenegro, and I'm not going to go into the historical differences why they're now two separate countries and were two separate countries before. It doesn't really matter. And I really don't know much about it, so probably half of the information would be wrong anyway. But in general, I was very surprised because our Serbian engineering team we had years ago for the German government was one of the most reliable and best I've had in my life. And I offered every single one of them to come back with us to Germany and work for a German company. And they decided that they have so much to do in the region to kind of fulfill the opportunities of the Balkan region that they'd rather stay home and build on top of that. We just say respect to that. The Balkans used to be, especially that area of Serbia, Montenegro, kind of the engineering hub of the former Eastern Bloc. So they used to do the trains, a lot of great engineering, Not just talking about Nikola Tesla, obviously, but coming out of the area. And I was always very impressed by the engineering levels we found in Serbia, Montenegro, also in Kosovo, for example, highly underrated places. Especially if you're from the US, you might have never heard about it before. Oliver, what else is going on in the world?
Just sticking on the drone aspect, it's quite interesting in terms of the market development that it's had over the last few years, and taking Amazon wanting to deliver packages, and Texas has just said that they're going to deliver corona vaccines via drones, and commercialization of the market. It's one thing that we're seeing that's developed very much exponentially over the last few years. It's quite interesting that the US are going down that route in terms of their coronavirus vaccine delivery. We're meant to have Vitara on any minute now, but she's not here as of yet.
Okay, maybe check my phone, because that's probably how they're communicating, so they might be lost.
Yeah.
And I'm not sharing my password now publicly. We talked about data security earlier on, so not be cool. I'm not sure if Oliver knows my phone password. Oh, I kept that to myself. I still have one password left.
Surprise, surprise.
But they should be any minute. But it's a very good point about the drones in general. Just labor cost, especially in the US, obviously is one of the biggest factors. And you can't just drive things around for 6-7 hours to deliver a package that might be worth $20. So it's very obvious that they're going to go other ways. If it's going to be drones in massive fleets, I also foresee a vision in the US where you're just like being surrounded by drones, because people order so much, right? How are you going to do that? But again, it's going to be a massively growing markets and new materials. And I said also new battery technology if we're going electric, making all of this possible. And we're still waiting for electric cars that is going to fly us out to the islands, so we simply go to the beach once traffic returns after COVID. Right now, it's not a big issue because there's nobody here. But once traffic returns, it will come back with a vengeance, probably. So let me give you 1 second. Oliver, if you take the mic, and I'm going to check if I have a message from Vitara, if they're lost on the way.
Yeah, perfect. I think the biggest thing is taking the aspect of not just flying machines taking over what we're doing, but one exciting thing that we had yesterday again, and building up to exventure Israel, was Aruga, in terms of what they're doing with AI and robotics for pollination within greenhouses. And it's really exciting to see potential new avenues in terms of waste to energy and water treatment plants applicable into desertified areas. So it's not looking at it in terms of robots taking over human or bees' jobs, but actually opening and expanding the markets within that. So that's the exciting thing. And we obviously have 4 other phenomenal companies based out of solar, battery technology, AI farming. It's one exciting thing to see is the diversity, especially coming from all over the world, but specifically Israel, and what we're going to be presenting on the 25th, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and this brings us to our next guest, and I hope they're outside. We came up with a very crazy idea about 2 weeks ago I want to talk to you about, because also might teach you a little something about how to start a small business, especially on a budget in very difficult times. We have talked a lot about Bali, obviously deserted right now. We live a little bit inside the bubble. We kind of huddle down in this little pocket out of Canggu. But if you leave this, going to Seminyak, it's like ghost town, right? It's like an amusement park where somebody turned the key and just shut it down. And so about 2 weeks ago, I was getting a little bit bored with the same entertainment offerings on a frequent basis. We don't have rampant COVID here, so we can still meet people. And I decided to launch my own brand called Senses, which I came up in about 6 minutes because I wanted to create a restaurant, arts, live music, creative experience that we have been lacking. We have dinners and we have like dance parties with a DJ, but really no shows like I used to have in New York for a long time. And so the question was, how do we launch something like this? How do we start a product like this, especially during COVID, when all the restaurants are empty? And maybe something to learn from this experience is to really learn it, to own it. The idea for us was that we own this experience, and we took a place that has been shut down for COVID, an excellent restaurant which is run by my friend Ichi, who has not been on the show yet tonight for the first time. and brought it back to life for a one-night only event, and then invited all the artists in town. And something really incredible happened. I see a lot of companies out there, you work for years or months on your app and you don't know if there's any customer validation. We got validation of the concept within the first evening, right? By 6:45 p.m., which for Bali is like late afternoon, that's where usually people are still on the beach for sunset, we knew that this concept is going to work. And if you're trying to build an app, and that's the point I'm making, if you're building a new business and you have not validated your business concept, try to find the cheapest, easiest way to do it, and then see if there's even an audience for it. In this case, there was an audience there. I wasn't the only person that was bored, but ultimately, you never know. So, Oliver, what is your take on this? I mean, you were at Census opening a week ago. It was freaking epic, right? For COVID days, especially.
Big time. It was one of those showcase events. It was really, really enjoyable to be at a restaurant that's been closed for the last 6 months and actually throw the house down and getting sort of 15, 20 employees working again and having an absolutely incredible time along with it, and sort of socializing with people, obviously socially distant, whatever you like to say, wherever you are in the world. But we have our phenomenal guest that's just arrived now that's going to be playing a prequel for us tonight, I believe, and then for everyone that's fortunate enough to be in Bali right now to see the showcase event tomorrow night within Census. Who knows where it's going to be, though?
Exactly. It's going to be moving around for a while, and that's kind of part of the thing, because it's part of the story, right? We're owning the COVID story. We're owning kind of the idea that, you know, we bring these places back to life. As Oliver said, we're bringing people back to work that have been back in their villages for a while. And Oliver, as the financial analyst, this was the first product launch. I mean, coming out of deep tech, we're used to spending tens of millions of euros before we ever know if something works. Like, we pretty much broke even on day one. I mean, that's huge by us. We have never done that.
Not even broke even. It was there was a certain profit margin that was made on a brand launch, which is quite rare.
Money back.
Quite rare.
Yeah, but it's amazing. I mean, if you're launching a product and you just want to know if your customer really is interested in it, don't waste a year. Don't waste 2 years. Try to figure out the cheapest possible way to validate the traction for your audience. I think it's a big thing to learn, because you ultimately don't know. Like, we felt there was a market for it, and we validated that market with pretty much just a little bit of effort, a little bit of money spent, and then we can kind of double down on it. So we're going to be doing Census again tomorrow. It's going to be twice as big. It's going to be twice as fun, we hope. And so we're growing from there, but based on a concept. And so we have a special guest coming in tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit, if you're competent. This is the man that's putting our band together. I feel like, you know, I'm like the Blues Brothers here. And we're joined by Vitara. You can take my chair, if that's okay, from focus-wise. Yeah? We'll make it work from a technical perspective. And Vitara, just a few questions. You're like a TV star in your free time, right?
Yeah, right.
I can go in the middle. Yes, we don't need this TV. And this is the first time we have had 2 guests on simultaneously, so we're learning. Just one question, because you're super young and you were younger back then. You were on The Voice of Indonesia, the kids version. How old were you?
My old?
Yeah, how old?
I'm 17-year-old.
Okay.
And I was in The Voice when I was, I think, 18 or 15.
And how was your experience? I mean, you had a massive audience, right? Like, people know from the TV show, they have The Voice all over the world, the same as American Idol, but big audience. Were you not scared to death? I mean, you're a shy person from what little I know.
No.
Does the shyness go away once you go on stage?
But that was a good experience, yes?
Yeah, that was a good experience for me.
I mean, even for myself, like, I have never been, for example, in front of, like, let's say 2,000 people, or whatever.
But how many people do watch that program? I mean, it's a lot of people. I mean, Indonesia is a big country.
On the stage, it's
for people who don't know Indonesia is like 250, 260 million people.
Yeah.
It's as big as the entire European Union. We forget that sometimes. How does it feel to sing in front of so many people and then have them vote also on your performance?
I feel nervous sometimes, but yeah, I have to do the best, I think, yeah.
And you're very driven. So we're super excited to have both of you tomorrow with us when Itchy is hosting Itchy Mania 2020, as it was used to be called. Now it's called Census. It's a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
It also works better on. But the initial title was Itchy Mania 2020, past the point of no return. And it's now or never. But somehow I didn't get enough votes on that, so we shut it down to Census.
So this guy is itchy.
He's the man in charge.
Oh,
he is the man in charge. Exactly. I'm just the face.
I thought you're Indonesian.
I'm just here because I'm pretty and I can sing, but he's actually the guy who's in charge of the whole thing. And he's actually Japanese, but he fooled me too at the beginning. I thought he was Indonesian as well. But this way we're going to have amazing Japanese food. So Felix already is blushing in the back. I'm probably being controversial again, but it's okay, right? So we're going to have you guys tomorrow. You're going to be opening the second night of Census with us tomorrow in Canggu. And I'm very happy that you're coming on our program. What are you going to sing for us?
Like for now?
Yeah.
For now or for... I don't know.
What's
your favorite? Whitney Houston always works. All right. Hero.
Indonesian song or?
No, do something international. Something we know.
If I got you?
All right.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right. I give you the mic. Let me know when you're ready. I'm going to step out of the picture for once. I'm going to get myself a little glass of wine and got cozy. And then appreciate this amazing voice. Vitara, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Ready?
Ready. Some people live for the fortune. Some people live just for the fame. Some people live for the power, yeah. Some people live just to play the game. Some people live are the physical things divine or within. And I've been there before, and their lives are poor, so far with the superficial. Some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. Yeah.
so distracted taping you that I'm like missed my cue to come back on stage. Amazing. You're such a beautiful voice. I know you prefer to sing over talking, so I will not make it. Do you have one more for us? Because then we're going to go home and we're going to have an...
Maybe.
It sounds really, really awesome, right? Felix, what do you think in technical? He's happy back there, right? And I'm sorry we don't have the big audience like you're used to, but you'll have that tomorrow. A little bit more raunchy.
Yeah, it's gonna come tomorrow.
Do you have one more for us?
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Wow.
And I'll go back and I'll be your groupie taping it, right?
Wait, but I need to...
Let's take our time tonight, girl. A province, all the stars are watching. There's no place I'd rather be in this world. Your eyes are where I'm lost in. Underneath the chandelier, we're dancing all alone. There's no reason to hide what we're feeling inside right now. So baby, let's just turn down the lights and close the door. Ooh, I love the dress, but you won't need it anymore. Oh, you won't need it no more. Let's just kiss it while naked, baby. Versace on the floor. Ooh, take it out for me, for me, for me, for me now, girl. Versace on the floor.
Oh, I love it. Can we add that song to tomorrow? Can we add that song to tomorrow?
Yeah,
For the
if you want.
It's so beautiful. It's such a unique version of the song.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. This is it from us in beautiful Canggu, Bali. Itchy, come here. Because this man has aged 10 years since I met him. I just found out he's actually 10 years older than me. But he looks, no, he's actually not. Pretty exactly the same age. He's going to be in charge tomorrow. If you still want to join us, we're super booked. But check us out on Instagram. It's a private group. We don't like everybody. It's like coming to Bali. All don't come unless you're cool and hot and smart and we like you. It's Census Canggu, hashtag on Instagram, and it's going to be an amazing show tomorrow. Thank you both so much. Thank you very much, Vitara. And we're going to have her link and everybody else underneath the show. Thank you. Have a good night and
We have Edmas that's going to be joining us via Zoom.
How are we going to follow this one up? I thought we were done.
We're back on to somewhat clean tech. And
man, you're
venture
making me
funding.
work.
Apologies.
And it's so easy in the middle of all this talent to forget that I still do have a job. That was really, really awesome. So, Oliver, what are we talking about next? I'm still kind of in tears.
We're joining Edmas from Singapore, who is actually Neo, first name.
Okay.
That's clean tech venture, strategic venture investment arm.
Oh wow, that's like a whiplash.
Polar opposites.
But I mean, that's
yeah.
why we like this program.
Keep you on your toes.
Exactly, keeping me awake, on my toes, and on the edge. What a great story, though. Again, so tomorrow night, Bali is going to be freaking epic, but still we have a lot of challenges to solve on a global level. And this is why we keep coming back to clean tech investment. And welcome. Neo, is that the right way to call you?
Hi, Julien. Very nice to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Familiar Zoom background in the back. It just something that confuses me. You're based in Singapore, right?
Yes, I'm based in Singapore.
How's life in Singapore right now?
Well, pretty much normal. We are moving around pretty much, but still working from home for me. Yeah.
Okay, and I mean, I've had some friends in Singapore that were really, getting a bit, down from being locked up for so long. But you guys are back out on the street. You're shopping. Life is pretty normal, right, at this point?
Yes, it is. In fact, it's pretty crowded out there in the shopping center, at the restaurant. But of course, there is social distancing policy in place where we, cannot congregate in restaurant like more than 5 people in the group. Yeah, but otherwise, pretty much normal. Yeah.
Okay, all right. This was interfere with my favorite karaoke parties in Singapore, but even that will come back at some point. So tell us something about what you do.
Right. Well, right now I'm focusing a little bit more on sustainability, pushing, driving for these sustainability goals and some of the projects that we do in building companies that are grounded on humanity, empathy, and trying to create a positive impact for the environment. Yeah, but for the past 7 or 8 years, I have been very much helping to develop the Singapore startup ecosystem. Firstly, as a regional director with Singapore Innovate, and I launched quite a number of acceleration program and pioneered a number of corporate innovation program.
Fantastic.
And after
Just
that,
sorry, why I stop you? Because we love Singapore Innovate, and there a lot of people always ask us on this program because when they say where should I set up my company, is that if you raise money in the U.S., go to the U.S. If you raise money outside of the U.S. And not in Europe, go to Singapore. Tell us a little something. Take 2 minutes and tell us about this incredible, government programs that you have in Singapore to help young startups and tech companies to bring their products to market. There's so much out there. It's very unique.
all right. In fact, there is a lot of different programs and effort that the Singapore government has put in place to help young and new founders or mid-career switchers to launch their startup ventures, right? So there are various agencies and organizations doing that, and there are many different acceleration programs and venture building programs put in place that is supported by Enterprise Singapore. So SG Innovate or Action Community for Entrepreneurship, these were the 2 organizations that I was in that plays a role in helping to develop the ecosystem and support entrepreneurship. But private company like what I'm doing now as at Accurate Innovation, we are also doing a lot of work in helping new company to spin off through our venture building program, and we're also attracting various foreign company coming into Singapore through our business launcher and market access program.
And when you say venture building, so as far as I know, you get involved in an early stage with the company and get them ready for raising the funds, right? Is that Singapore only, or you're raising on an international level?
Typically international level, but there are already a lot of investors and VCs in Singapore. So typical approach would be, of course, reaching out to the Singapore investor first, right?
Yeah, because I mean, also need for the government programs, always good to have some Singapore investors on board as well, right? If I understand this correctly.
Yes.
We're having one company on there doing like synthetic milk or something like that from Singapore. That was a pretty awesome story. I don't know when they're scheduled, but they're coming on. So there's some really good tech stories coming out of Singapore. Why do you think Singapore is as innovative as it is and as active in the startup market? There are a lot of really good Singaporean companies coming out there. What do you think? What makes Singapore so special?
Well, I don't think it is an overnight thing, right? We have been building the startup ecosystem for a number of years. And the way the program have been structured, the government and private sector partnership in trying to build the ecosystem has also been evolving, and we learn through different implementation and continue to improve on it. So there is a lot of concerted support and policy in place, and different infrastructure put in place to help the startup ecosystem and help new founders to launch their businesses. So there's no lack of program, there's no lack of government support, and there's a very strong push for digitization and technology development. So I believe that actually contributed to quite a good positive ecosystem, right? To not only develop local startup, but also to attract a lot of foreign startup to be based in Singapore as a launch pad, to the Southeast Asia region.
Yeah, and one program maybe that might be the easiest that we are participating in gives you almost 250,000 Singapore dollars, I think, at this point, to build a prototype in Singapore, which is financing a prototype is one of the toughest things to do. Nobody ever wants to pay for that. And there literally is a government program, some stipulations on it, need about like 30% shareholding by a Singaporean investor. But it's all possible you can manage that. And that might be the way for you to get your product out there. And then there are a lot of really good universities. We work with NTU, for example, in Singapore that can support you. And I'm just my staff in the back. We've spent a lot of time in Singapore and even on the Malaysian side. Oliver, a little bit you want to share about our site, working with the Malaysians and the Singaporeans? Has been an interesting ride, right?
Yeah, it's quite a development, especially on the university level, partnering with UTM and NTU for a technical and R&D aspect, and resources in terms of engineering are interesting in this part of the world. They're a lot cheaper, but deliver a very similar output to European counterparts. So it's been really interesting. It's the deal cycle and partnership cycle has been very elongated over here, especially with a number of projects that we've been working on. But it's been exciting, and we're excited to see where we're going to be going in that aspect, especially with Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, of course.
Yeah, we used to go to Singapore. I mean, we're all in Singapore, right? Everybody that works in Bali, we see Bali a little bit of like the nice suburb of Singapore. I know it's 4.5 hour flight hours away, but if you have a family, this is an amazing place to live, and Singapore is one of the best places to work in the world. I mean, I think that we can sum this income. So when you get involved with this startup, what is your process, and what companies are you really looking forward to working with, and what gets you excited? I know it's a triple question. How to work with you, what gets you excited, and what can a company expect?
Right, we work with a company across different stages. So there are 3 stages that we look at right now. For companies that are just starting up, they can join our venture building program. We work with a few partners to do the venture co-creation, where we will put in a lot of effort in resources to help shape up the company and to guide them through to the next stage. For companies that are already at the seed or pre-A stage, we will then work with them through our mentoring processes, and then to help them to scale up, right? Yeah, and for companies that are interested to come into Singapore, we have the business launcher program that we help them. So specifically in what are the areas or sector that we look at, right now we focus a bit more on sustainability. We are very concerned about innovation that has a positive impact on the people, the life of people, and the environment. So there are 6 sectors that we are looking at right now: sustainable environment, sustainable living, food tech, digi health, entertainment, and sustainable finance. So we believe these 2 broad categories, we classify them into sustainable living and lifestyle technology, would at least form a basic foundation for us when we assess and when we reach out to the startup. This will be our guiding principle that we want them to be able to consider, right? At least when they develop the business model or the supply chain, what would be their impact to the environment as a whole.
Yeah. One other question in that regards. I mean, obviously we work, our main market is the US, West Coast, East Coast. These companies are often not aware of the potential that you have in Southeast Asia overall. I mean, I see Singapore kind of as a hub. It's a legal system that we're used to. It has very good shareholder protection, many benefits. But if you look at sustainability, say a little something about the potential of bringing your company to Southeast Asia, because I think it's an incredible time to enter the market here.
Right. So Southeast Asia, if you look at it, there are about 740 million people. Is one of the larger block of population over here. But again, it consists of multiple countries, different culture and different stage of development. Essentially, there's a lot of opportunity out there. But when I look at it, there are four countries that play a very important role. That would be Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand, right? So these are the 4 to 5 countries that are leading the pack right now. Now, specifically for sustainability, the demand will be quite different also. So, for example, in Singapore, we are very concerned about food sustainability, about clean tech, about renewable. Essentially, also because of our own limitation, right? We are looking at importing about 90% of food. So in terms of the food tech, urban farming, these are not just technology development, but also important strategically for Singapore as a whole. Now, but for other countries, perhaps in terms of the sustainable finance, helping people to to be financially more stable and to remove some of the poverty issue. That is also another area that is of growing demand, right?
And I think also, how do you feel about this? I mean, we're based in Indonesia. We spend a lot of time in Singapore. We got a lot of increase these days from Myanmar. Cambodia is really coming up. There seems to be a startup scene that is growing over there as well. And I do feel that there's more capital being made available to impact companies. They're more, I don't know what your take on this, but Southeast Asia is more driven by family office, right? Really very wealthy. Not saying some of them seem to have a Chinese background, but that's kind of where the capital comes from. But when I arrived in Asia, 6-7 years ago, sustainability was not really a big subject. But it feels like a lot of capital and a lot of this family offices and the big corporates are just discovering this as their new target market. How do you feel about this?
Yes, I think it is a very good time, the right time right now. Yeah, so a lot of family offices, conglomerates, they are putting aside funds for the CSR activities. And I think people are starting to be more aware of, the sustainable investment kind of activities, right? So even for Singapore, MAS has just recently launched a Center of Competency for ESG investment, training up the talents and also creating more awareness in that area. Yeah, so I believe it is really a right time, a great time. In fact, if you look around the news, there are a lot of activities and a lot of talks relating to sustainability.
I think it's really growing, and maybe another secret, we are actually managing one of the projects for the German government, working together with the Singaporean government on wastewater treatment. I think for Singapore and Malaysia, includes companies like Semcorp on the Singaporean side and Inda Water on the Malaysian side. So the two systems when it comes to government funding, if you're a German company, for example, working with Singaporeans, they really love them. Very low level of corruption, highly organized. You get a fine for anything you can do. It's like the sunny version, the sunny funny version of Switzerland. But not being too broad. But I think it's really an incredible place, and for a good reason. We moved our business operation to Singapore as well. So if a company wants to get involved with you, what's the best way to reach out to you, and what is the process? Send you a pitch deck, or how can I work with you?
No, they can visit my website at agriinnovation.co, right? And they can send us a pitch deck. So we will go through a selection process to make sure that they are aligned with our interests and investment vision, right? And after that, we will invite them to join our program, the C Anchor program. We will go through a few mentoring sessions to really get to know them a little bit more better, and then introduce to our investment network. So if we see that there's a good match, we'll bring them over. Of course, right now we're doing that remotely, but in normal time, we'll bring them over here for a couple of weeks of immersion program, and further to understand whether they have that opportunity and really the keen interest to come over here. and from there we can develop into the next stage of collaboration with these startups.
Excellent. One question from my side. We're doing like this country programs, little self-pitch on November 25th. We're doing exventure from Israel. We're going to be presenting the 5 top tech companies coming out of Israel at this point. I think we should do something about this just as well from Singapore. Like 5 top Singapore tech companies. We should work together on this.
Yeah, why not? Definitely.
Get them a little bit of a spotlight out there. I said it's a tiny little country, but it's super innovative and a lot of capital there. So Neo, can you repeat one more time your website so people know where to find you, or LinkedIn? What's the better way to go?
Right, they can reach me through accredinnovation.co or seanchor.co, right? SEA for Southeast Asia, anchoring, right? ANCHOR.co.
Perfect. And if you have any companies that you think might benefit from our network, so we're a little bit weak in Singapore. We get 6 or 7 partners in Singapore at this point. It's a tough market to crack if you look as Western European as I do. I mean, to be quite honest. It's like Singapore is like one big family office. I mean, that at least how a little bit feels to me at this point. But it's going to be great to be working with you on this. And I think we have very, very similar goals in how to accelerate the companies that are really tackling humanity's biggest challenges of 21st century in water and energy and in storage, all these things. And we'll be back in Singapore soon. So Neo, thank you so much for taking the time to coming on our program, and very inspiring work. And next time you're in Bali, please come visit us at the Tropical Nomad, amazing place of Ichimania, and we're going to be back in Singapore very soon. We hope so they let us. Neo, thank you for your time. Very interesting.
All right. Okay.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, we moved through so many different time zones. Actually, there I can say good night. Many of our guests obviously come from the US, so for them it's sometimes brutally early in the morning. And from this side, a big thank you to the companies that sometimes join us at 5 a.m. To tell us about the incredible things they're doing, because it's difficult to operate between the West Coast US and Southeast Asia. We haven't really figured out a fix for that, but we know that most of you watch us anyway in the reruns on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and the other channels that we're broadcasting to. So let me take a little second to pitch our upcoming programs, because we're putting a lot of work into this, and I think you should notice these companies. November 25th is going to be exventure from Israel with our partners from Terra Ventures, and you can sign up to it on LinkedIn, also through our website, exventure. And we also want to invite you to members.exventure.co. That's our community where we have now almost 600 like-minded clean tech investors, companies that are coming together for inspiration, sharing information. Obviously, share all the content that we have done. We have interviewed about 150, 160 clean technology company investors over the last 4 months. So there's a lot of content out there. And then December 3rd is going to be a super big event, exventure from the US and Canada. Super excited in our cooperation with Greentown Labs and the Canadian Clean Tech Accelerator. We're going to be featuring 10 to 15 top US and Canadian companies. And then also next week, we're not starting there. We have a very, very special guest with us on Tuesday for a pitch mastermind session. It's Gert de Wouw from Shell Ventures. And obviously one of the biggest programs out there, biggest investors. Yesterday we had Set Ventures on, and actually Shell Ventures is one of the people that gives Set Ventures money, so it kind of gives you an idea of the scale of the whole program. But we see that our reach for our company is getting bigger and bigger every week. We're getting the corporate VCs in, we get the impact funds in. That's actually 2 weeks down, right? And Oliver's shaking his head because next one is We're
having Thierry on next week.
My friend Thierry is coming on board next week, and hopefully he's going to share a little bit information about the project he's working on that's going to revolutionize the way how we are going to track and reduce our waste emissions. I know we've talked a lot about carbon emissions, waste emissions, obviously is a huge subject. And it's the company's called Bonavera Ventures Partners. I'll have to look that one up as well. But he's an incredible advisor. We're happy to have him on the program next week, and he's going to bring some of his best companies in clean technology. And then the following week is going to be Gert de Wouw from Shell Ventures. And it's just going to be exciting every single week. And then also one thing, drop us a message. We're going to be launching our own course on Udemy. and we're also going to be launching on our own website, slightly different course, that is going to put all this information we have gathered from the last 250 Zoom calls into like something step-by-step guide of how to raise millions for your startup. This is an incredible time. We talked about last night. It's so easy to get access to investors, easier than ever, but it's also easier than ever to lose their attention and not move forward and just have a nice time, and it goes absolutely nowhere. So if you have any questions of how to raise money, please drop us a message. We're going to try to answer all of these questions once and for all in our absolutely all and mighty online course about how to raise money for your startup. And that's enough from us. We got so much going on, Oliver. Sometimes I personally even get confused. But what are we going to have next? I know we have one more guest on our program tonight.
We have Vikram joining us from Germany, but I believe he's going to be talking to us about AI in India. We actually have 2 guests on our Zoom call, so
It's going to be interesting.
Let's admit Vikram first, and then see who.
Maybe
the other
bringing
person
somebody
is.
along.
Yeah,
It's a party.
Let's see.
But have we talked to Vikram before? I mean, just should I?
We haven't.
Because it's obviously a very common name in India. So we have had Vikram, the investor, the project developer. There you go. There's
Hey.
Vikram. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Julian, good
How are ya?
afternoon. Everything is fine. No complaint with life. How are you?
Good. We don't hear that very often these days. Most people we talk to are locked up in their homes with their screaming kids. So great to hear your good spirit. Where are you based, Vikram?
Julian, I am in Germany, in Bremen.
Oh, my hometown.
Yes,
Wow, where? That is so odd.
it is.
That is really. I would say 200 Zoom calls later. That's the first time that ever happened. Where are you based in the city?
In Bremen.
In which part? I mean, I grew up in Schwachhausen, right? So
Bremen, north part of Germany, from 1 hour from Hamburg.
yeah, I know where it is. I'm asking you for your street address because I know the city so well. It's not that big.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I am I am in Fahar. New
Okay.
Fahar.
I went there to school actually.
Really?
And I went to the Gymnasium Kurt Schumacher Allee,
Okay.
which is a Neue Fahr Süd right there, and I actually
Yeah,
did my Abitur there. So like probably within a mile radius from you. But I left 26 years ago, right?
Then it is little changed.
I don't think it's changed much, but it's okay. I gotta. So what brings you to Germany?
So I was working for GE earlier in India. Thereafter, I joined UL, Underwriters Laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I came to Germany, and then I founded my startup company. So that's how I'm here.
And it's a German-based company.
It is German-based company. Yeah.
It's Bremen-based company. I mean, you got all my support now, right?
It is Bremen-based company.
Yeah, you know that my family has been there for almost 500 years. So we don't care that much about Germany overall, but we are very, when it comes to our little city state, we feel very, very strongly. You probably experienced that where you are.
Yes, it is a Bremen-based company.
Okay, that's really, really awesome. My first one. So what can I do for you? How much money you need? What do you do?
Julian, so we, LDOT Tech Solution, we are a wind turbine design house. So if you see that all the wind turbine maker, they have become a gigantic, right? Very big. And they have a power of R&D. But they all are in the position number 1. But all the player number 2 and 3 and 4, right, who have no R&D,
Yeah.
they are now dying. So mostly in Indian companies, they struggled a lot because they were always dependent on the outside R&D work. And those outside R&D work, these companies also disappeared somehow. So there is no backup, no support system for the companies who really want to venture into the wind turbine business, but they have no R&D. And wind turbine is something where you require R&D, otherwise you would not be sustainable. So we fill that gap.
So you provide the R&D for third parties. Let's say
We
your
provide
R&D contractor.
for third party. and recently we have designed 8 megawatt offshore turbine for our client, and we are, let's say, we are their firefighter. If they just get stuck somewhere, for example, their certification, if they are not
Okay.
getting a type certificate, if they are not able to design the wind turbine, the load calculation they are not able to do. If
And
So
give it,
those
give it a
all
little something.
technical.
Yeah. How big is how big is your company? And I'm going to ask you a few more questions about wind power in Germany because it's a very very interesting time.
So we started just 1.5 years back. We are not that big. We are only 3 people. All of us are at least 20 years of experienced design in certification. So, for example, I do the load calculation, controller design. My partner, he does the structural design, foundation design, offshore project certification. So we are not big in the number, but we take a bigger project and we part with the some third party as well.
And my second question, I mean, wind energy in Germany obviously was a boom market. Now it has really, the numbers have dropped, I mean, by like 90 something percent I've seen recently.
Sure.
How is the feeling overall in the industry? Because obviously it makes so much sense. I feel wind, like solar, is just at the very beginning, but Germany was so strong at the beginning that, you know, the growth potential within Germany is just kind of limited. At least that's how I feel. I mean, where you guys, if you leave 1 hour, go to the Northern Sea, I mean, there's a wind turbine every 500 feet, it feels like it. So how do you feel is the feeling within the wind energy industry right now in Germany?
So for industry point of view, I am very gung-ho about the industry that, and after Corona, I think people are really serious about the green energy as well, right? So they know that global warming is not fake, it is also real. So industry is growing, but I think the share, the pie cut of all the stakeholder is not properly distributed. So for example, in the wind industry, the developer or the utility company would always capture 60 to 70% of the overall pie. And then to the manufacturer, then supplier, it is 30, 25. So the second or third line level, they always struggle with the financial. And that's how we see that lot of turbine maker, they are shutting down, and most of bigger turbine maker are joining together hand, right? So
Yeah.
they are growing very big, and the second and third level, they are dying very shortly.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with access to capital. I mean, I think that's one of the things, and
That is one of the
consolidating the
things, yes.
market. And again, from my perspective, I've been building hardware and clean technology for the last decade. Don't do it. It's so quiet. Open a bar. Do something. That's what I learned this week. You know, if instead of building clean tech hardware, it's incredibly cost intensive, very low margin, and if something goes wrong along the way, I mean, you're really flat on your face very, very quickly. So do something nice with your life. But that's my experience at my age. But the biggest market, I mean, wind power right now, you put it quite much, it's going to be India, right? It's going to be Pakistan. It's going to be Southeast Asia. It's going to be China. It already is. But that's where the future is playing. That's at least how I feel.
Right. You are absolutely right. So, I mean, it's totally a mismatch where the market exists, where the skill set exists, and where the money exists. And the policy maker, right? For example, I definitely agree with you that the market is in India, but the policies are not favorable. So, for example, the solar is something have kind of killed the Indian wind turbine.
Okay. So they don't see it as a combination. They see it as a one or the other.
Because the policy makers they don't see, they probably don't have the insights what wind turbine or wind farm takes versus what solar takes, right? And then they measure everything based on the cost of LCOE, and they see at what price you can reverse bid. So solar would always win, right? So
Yeah, well,
there
when
is
it
a
shines, I
potential.
mean, the limitation is always solar will always win when the sun shines, right? That's where we are right
Yes.
now. That's kind of works together. When the sun doesn't shine, solar generally doesn't win. So we need something else.
Correct. That's the one of the reason. But then, if you see, if you have to make the whole world green, right? You would have to have the combination of
Yeah.
solar and wind. There are many places where wind would perform much better in the longer run than solar. So those places, especially the offshore or the high elevation where the average wind speed is high, those are the places where the wind should definitely play a role. So
Just want to, sorry to
I think
interject.
it's the know-how and little bit insights or education is
Yeah.
needed before the policy is drafted
Yeah.
in that market. Because once the policy is out, there is no investor who is investing in that technology, right?
Exactly. Vikram, give me 1 second. I'm going to hand this over to Oliver. He looks a bit confused.
Are we expecting anyone else to join us on this wonderful Zoom call?
Vikram, is there somebody else joining us from your company?
No.
Okay, because somebody's trying to join a Zoom call and we're not 100% sure who it is. Should we try it or should we not? Maybe try it a little bit.
Negative.
We don't want the surprises. It might be somebody crazy and naked on the other line. Probably not, but let's not push the level. So, Vikram, at this point for your company, what can be done to help you grow faster? Or what is your goal? How can we help you be more successful and make a bigger impact?
So essentially, we started with let's say as a consultant, but we do have a project what we want to make as a product. So we are our business model, which will grow in next 2 to 3 years, is that wind is one portfolio, and then solar would be a one portfolio, and the e-mobility is another portfolio. So the third one, where I say the e-mobility, because we lot of electric cars are there, right? But they are still not getting charged with the green power. So we are making a power on demand project where if you have electric car, you can call us. We would bring our car, charge your car with the green power, because in our battery we would have the charge from the solar farm or wind farm.
Yeah.
And then it would be a virtual grid kind of combination. So that's the project where we are working in. And we definitely require funding, right, to grow. So this year we wanted to see how the corona plays the role, right? If the VCs have fund or not. And now probably this is a time when we would start pitching to the VCs or angels to raise fund and grow the business with the services side and also on the product side.
Yeah, I would just from my feedback, stay very focused. If you're venturing out from what you're doing right now, be very careful and very precise about what you're doing. Also, I mean, you're based in Germany, so I'm just guessing that you're mainly looking for maybe hiring more staff. Obviously, a lot of government incentives out there to do that, especially in your field. A lot of that. This is a big part of what we do, right? We manage government money and projects. I like the idea of giving consulting to wind farm or wind hardware developers, because in the future, like let's say India is going to become a boom market in wind energy, right? And Myanmar and Cambodia, and we have a lot of this, countries that are really switching into high gear right now when it comes to renewables. I don't think they'll be able to afford, and it makes sense for them to, let's say, import Nordex systems from Germany. I think they'll be looking very strongly of building local expertise on a national level in order to build their own industry. I mean, that would make sense to me because, I mean, as you know, a wind farm is not easily taken apart into pieces. It's not as easily shipped as an electric vehicle. So, I mean, I think a lot of this countries will be looking, and we see this with solar as well. We see more and more countries that are like, we don't want 100% depend on China. We need our own expertise. And there I really see a market, for countries that are saying, listen, we want some kind of value that is generated from the systems within the country ourselves. And obviously, technically, they can do that. Right. So, and I don't know right now who that would ask. If, let's say, I'm the government of Vietnam, and I'm looking to build local expertise, who do I ask? Right? I'm not going to, start at the university going into it. I would hire people like you. So I think you can probably do very, very well staying in a very small niche. But still, I mean, the wind market is $1 trillion market, right? So a small niche in $1 trillion market in the fastest growing economies in the world, pre-COVID, it's still a good place to be.
Yes, of course, absolutely. It is just that if you calculate the business in terms of the scalability, then that becomes the problem. If we don't have a product and you're just selling the hours as a consultancy, right? So if we want to grow and scale, there we would require some kind of technology to play with and to have a product instead of just
the consulting. Yeah, I think another big thing is actually the planning of wind parks. That we still see a lot of mistakes made of optimization of wind parks.
Right.
If you have an institutional investor, I mean, they're down to like 3% margin. So if you're the guys that bring this from 3 to 8, that's huge.
Sure.
Through expertise, right?
Julien, this is our expertise actually. So one of our client in South Korea, they came to us and the first thing in the design is that load calculation, and load calculation decides what would be the tons of the steel you are going to use on your wind turbine.
Yeah.
So lower the load is very important. And we optimize their load calculation and reduce the load by 10 to 15% in the different components.
Makes a huge difference.
This is a huge difference. And because any R&D, right, they are based on the timeline. So you just do the 1 or 2 time iteration of the load. You say, okay, I am tired, I am done. This has to go to the next department. Done, right? But all the optimization happens after that third cycle, because after third cycle only you start seeing the insights, how the turbine is behaving, how the dynamics are playing role. So we are very strong doing the optimization. In fact, in the market, when we started our business, we started with the success guaranteed. If we don't reduce the load, don't pay us.
Yeah.
That was the model we started because we were very new.
And I think it's a very good model. I mean, we talked about if you can watch the rerun from last night with the Set Ventures, and they say that model still works, right? You pay for the savings. Obviously, you're going to provide the savings, you're going to make a lot more money. But the margins, and I think there's an entirely new market coming up. The margins on new power project now is so razor thin. I mean, if you like solar in our part of the world, we're like talking 1.8, 1.9 cents per kilowatt hour, right? On large scale wind projects, between 1 and 3 cents. So every 5 to 10% you can maybe get out there, and the operational cost, I mean, that makes a huge difference. A few years ago, nobody cared at 40 cents per kilowatt hour, but now it's a different story.
Right. It is a huge difference. It is just that, for example, our customers, right, who are the, let's say, tier 2 customers, maker, right? These people are struggling a lot to sell to the wind farm because their market size is squeezed by the bigger player. And that's the tussle happening between the really, really giant dinosaur of the industry versus those small 1 megawatt size of the turbine maker, 2 megawatt size of the turbine maker.
And it has been a terrible year. I mean, I say it's tough to imagine for other people. Like, but we still build power systems. That's my day-to-day job. But how do you build a power system if I cannot send any team out there to commission it? And so this is the other thing about COVID is, let's say, we have power systems standing in Dominican Republic and in Japan and Indonesia, but I'm not able physically to send my team out there to actually commission them. And that obviously, why that might be temporary, but like 2020 for anybody in the hardware game of selling equipment in the power industry that takes highly skilled labor to install. I mean, this wasn't even a year. I don't even know what that was. It was a blackout. It's not, there are no terms in regular business. I mean, we went to zero revenue within, when COVID hit. Because very simply, you cannot deliver on a project. So we're lucky if we're not, run into any penalties. I mean, that's about as good as life gets right now for anybody of this tier 2, tier 3 manufacturers that you're talking about. Vikram, but it's a super interesting story. If somebody out there, I really suggest to you running a very targeted marketing campaign, finding exactly more of these companies that might be looking into new innovation, local, national players that want to build a wind industry. I think there's enough out there to build a really good business. And if someone wants to get in contact with you, what is your website?
It is a www.al.in.
Okay, fantastic. We're definitely going to share this. And if you're a wind company out there, or you want to build your own capacity in building wind powering hardware, whichever way it might be, anywhere in the world, I think great to reach out. Obviously, we would love to see a company from my native hometown to do really, really well. And that's definitely first, Vikram. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We wish you all the luck in the world. Keep checking in with us, right, on your progress. We
Thank you very much,
we might have some good government projects for you as well. We're very strong on that.
Pleasure connecting you here, Julien. Thank you very much.
Fantastic,
we'll keep in
Vikram.
touch.
Have a great day to my hometown. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Oliver, so what's happening now? Do I have to finish the program singing myself, or?
We're all set now. Unfortunately, we're going to be finishing the program with Julien Uhlig.
Are we going to be just finishing with me? No singing. I have not sung on this program.
Yeah, let's do that.
And I'm not going to do it tonight because I don't feel I'm going to save all my powers for Census 2 tomorrow. And then afterwards, I'm going to retire Angels for a while because it's kind of getting ridiculous. I keep singing the same song because I don't really have a lot of time or effort or brain capacity left to learn anything new. But that will change in the future. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Again, 25th, exventure from Israel. December 3rd, exventure USA and Canada is going to be amazing. Next Tuesday, Thierry is joining us from Bonaventure. They're really awesome. He's going to bring some great companies with us. And the week after is Geert de Wouw from Shell Venture is going to be joining us for the Pitch Mastermind. And if you have a great innovation, a company, an idea that you want to share with us in a casual setting like we do in our late night, drop us a message. Put a slot in there. Let's talk about what you have. And if there's something that we feel comfortable, we can put some spotlight on and introduce to our global investor network or partner network. You never know what we're going to find. And it has been my honor, my pleasure to host you tonight. My name is Julien Uhlig. I wish you all the best from beautiful Canggu, Bali. Good night. We see you next week. What?
I think we should roll out with the census video.
Oh, let's do that. That looks so good.
And it's Bonaventura.
Bonaventura Ventures
I believe.
next week with our friend Thierry. Bringing 3 incredible companies on the program with him via Zoom. And we're going to finish the program absolutely with our video from Census 1, which might go down the history books of how to build a brand during COVID. Thank you, everybody, and good night.